I would get my only guess right now is that I can make is that Daly is in charge of the Red-Headed League scam. Daily Vigil. That's the only thing that like I'm suspicious of. That other than that I can just jump right into it. Oh, there you are, Odo. What kept you, my dear fellow? Aren't you supposed to go get the red-headed people? Or at least the people in charge of it, which may or may not be red-headed. Hello, Mr. Sholmes, Ginna. You sure about what you said in there? That the boss, you know, actually died the day before? It's pretty hard to swallow. Yes, I was shocked by the revelation too, Gina. As was I, possibly more shocked than both of you. It's not a competition, Mr. Sholmes. But I was more shocked than all of you put together. This is the autopsy report in question, is it? Yes, it's strange that there's no time of death noted. I suppose there's a simple explanation, or perhaps it was a deliberate omission. The body would, well... After a certain amount of point, it's harder to tell. A certain amount of time, it's harder to tell the time of death to a very high resolution. Especially if it's not in water. There should be something you can do, though, as it relates to the amount of gas buildup. Oh dear, if it was deliberate, it puts me in mind of the last case we worked on, Dr. Scythe. I know, anyway. Seems that on the day before Lord Van Zykes discovered his body, Inspector Gregson was investigating the Red-Headed League, so perhaps something happened with them. Come to think of it, you had trouble with those Leaguemen too, didn't you, Mr. Sholmes? You were taken in by their trick. No. Naturally, I wasn't taken in, as you put it. My sleuth-hound interest was merely piqued slightly by the rare scent of a weekly £4 income. And that scent masks the underlying scent of deception, I suppose? The two criminals in question are the pair we saw being arrested yesterday, aren't they? In Mr. Sholmes' suite, I mean. That's right, Suze, and it was me who took him in. Okay, so not Vigil. I'm an idiot. Just like right off the bat, an idiot. Thanks to the tip-off by a good old law-abiding citizen. Indeed. Yours truly. So it's going to be that pair in the witness stand next, is it? Something doesn't quite make sense to me, though. The day before Inspector Gregson was found, you hadn't had trouble with the Red-Headed League yet, had you? Why would the inspector have been investigating them? Well, the likely explanation would be that Gregson's own sleuth-hound interest was piqued by the rare scent of a weekly £4 income. Don't tar him with the same brush as you, Sholmes. Yes, well, then there's the whole issue of Inspector Gregson being investigated by Lord Van Zykes for some reason. The Reaper, the Red-Headed League, Inspector Gregson, Lord Van Zykes, and Kazuma. I feel as though he knew we'd arrive at this point somehow. Gosh, I think you're right. What's he really trying to achieve here today? I guess I don't know anything. I really don't know anything here. All the answers will soon be revealed. Observe the time, my dear fellow. This recess will be over very shortly. Yes, you're right. As in, now. Kazuma was determined that he should be the one to prosecute this trial. And he was determined that I should take the defense. Just what is it that he's hoping to make me see, I wonder? I get the feeling we're a long way from the end of this trial yet. Oh, well, shucks. Are you ready then, Miss Susato? Yes. I don't know if more footage or less footage is better. I certainly get to sleep more if there's less footage. I could stop recording at any time. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the closed court hearing of Barak Van Zykes. here present who stands accused of murder. Now then, Prosecutor Asogi. My lord? Have you summoned the witnesses as requested? Yes, the 2 members of the Red-Headed League who planned and carried out the deception. They arrived not long ago from the local prison by police carriage. Very good. Bailiff, usher the 2 men into the courtroom. These 2 men are currently being held by the police on suspicion of attempted extortion. You may omit your occupations, but state your names for now to the court. I am Fabien de Rousseau, a descendant of the great de Rousseau family from Nice in France. How do you pronounce N-I-C-E in French? Nique? I don't know. And my name is Peppino de Rossi. I am the 3rd son of the great Familia de Rossi, the landowners from Napoli. The 2 men first became acquainted at the boarding school for European nobility. Those who graduate from Temsic are the future leaders of Europe. But, do you have any idea how boring it is to be born with noble blood? Allures, I make it my mission to get the better of the world by employing the little gray cells of my brain. That is all I am trying to do, So, that's the only reason for this whole grand deception you've been carrying out? Oi, you could say that. Not bad, eh? He has the grand ideals, but the petty plans. This strange combination is the charm of the hilarious brothers. Si capo. Listen to me, Peppino. I have 2 things to say about you. Eche, are you about to tell me one of your grandi anecdotes, Eviva? Firstly, I want you to stop calling me this capo. And secondly, we are not the hilarious brothers. This is serious business. Che bello, there it is, the capo's trump card. The furrowed brow. It is deep, capo, the furrow, and the meaning of your words. The court has been led to believe that under the banner of the Red-Headed League, you have conspired to swindle money from unsuspecting members of the public. Is this true? Oui. Just... I don't know how to pronounce that. And what exactly was the nature of this deception by which you planned to defraud? Allures, I'll explain it. No, capo. Leave it to me. As you see, we both have the vivid red hair, no? At school, you were teased for this without pity. The capo here, he was many times behind the schoolhouse crying like the Trevi fountain. Please, those dogs, one day the world will respect us redheads. Every night, he would bury his head in his pillow. C'est bien, Peppino, enough. I will explain the rest. The first step was the newspaper advertisement. About 1 week before the plan was put into operation, we listed the same notice in every paper in London. Yes, we saw that notice. It was this one, I believe, entitled The Red-Headed League. Oui. I still don't know how to pronounce that. What's that bottom of the sea do? I don't know. Anyway, I am honored that you have seen it. It states that the only condition for joining the league is having flame-colored hair, and that if you satisfy the interview panel and are admitted into the league, you could receive a weekly income of £4. On the date specified, red-headed hopefuls gathered in droves at a park specified in the advertisement, and from each person present, this pair took an application fee of 5 shillings. And with the money to France, it was a plan most elegant, none? Very simplistic, though. No, it was most dishonorable. But to be frank, I'm stunned anybody would be foolish enough to be taken in by such an obvious trick. The park was described by one witness as choked with red-headed folk like a coaster's orange barrow. And the day on which all these men gathered to apply was the day before the victim was discovered. Crucially, these two men spoke face to face with every single person present that day. Oi, I've seen more red-headed people in one day than I will see in the rest of my life. And CC. And now, every time I see the capo's hair, I feel sick to my stomach. Anyway, why have we been summoned here today? Sorry? Is that for our trial was not until tomorrow, I was told. Naturally, neither of these men have been told any details about this trial. They've only been shown this photograph. Very good. Which makes sense because it's like, you know, confidentially closed, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Nonsense. So, Mr. de Rousseau and Mr. de Rossi, you will now give your formal testimony for the court on the subject of the gentleman pictured in this photograph. Of course, we are always ready to help with the law. We had more than 1,000 red-headed people assembled in the park on Lime Street that day. But I don't recall the man in this photograph. Eh, Capo? None. I don't remember him. Obviously, he is dead now, but I assure you, he was not in the park. Honora, this victim is a nothing to do with us. You have a lot to answer for, Peppino. It is your fault that we got caught in the first place. You have given sworn testimony that this man in the photograph was not present. Can you be certain? Oi. I am quite certain. We did not interview the man. Nobody looking like this came to the park. This I can promise. It must be noted that you have been arrested for a grand deception, however. Accordingly, this court has little confidence in your assurances. Uffa. With this attitude, we get a nowhere, He's really a sulking now. This confidential document was obtained directly from Scotland Yard. It records an entry from the inspector's private diary dated the day before the incident. It reads, Lime Street, Red-Headed League. Undercover. Ah, I have the answer. Maybe there was another similar event in the park on the day in question, eh? That is ridiculous. There's no question that Inspector Gregson was investigating the Red-Headed League, which means it's quite possible that that's when he was killed. Very well, the defense may proceed with the cross-examination now. Ah, yes, my lord.
Hold it!
1,000 people, that's a very big crowd. It was quite a spectacle. Redheads had come from all over the capital. See, the capo here, he has the magnetismo animale, eh? Nobody else could attract so many people. If I could be born again, I would be capo. As those the people wanted was the money, Peppino, the £4 per week. Are you suggesting that you spoke personally with all 1,000 applicants? Oui. That we did, because every one of them paid us 5 shillings. We take their names and we take their money, and we take their address as well. Then I tell them we take us some days to let them know by a post, finito, maybe 2 minuti a person. We start early in the morning and we stop late in the night. So you earned 5,000 shillings in one day. That's a small fortune. Who'd have thought there were 1,000 such gullible redheads in London to start with? one of whom was a great detective with chemically altered hair.
Hold it!
He doesn't look at all familiar. No, I don't think so. And this is a wig, yeah? He was trying to trick us. I do not like the people who are trying to trick the other people. Says the con artist. If between them they interviewed 1,000 people with red hair, it would be unreasonable to expect them to remember every face. No, no, Signor. It may be small, but my memory is very large. I never forget a thing. In my opinion, I do not think this man was in the park. But he's not going to give the court a definite, it seems. Hey, Capo, you didn't see the man like this, huh? No, I don't remember him, and obviously he's dead now, but I assure you he was not in the park.
Hold it!
But according to what you've said, you spoke with 1,000 or more people that day. Oh, that's true. My eyes are burning by the end of the day. Surely then you can't actually remember every single face. How are you so certain that this particular man wasn't present? Normally the red hair is very distinctive, eh? But not when you have 1,000 redheads crowding around, then it's just an eyesore. But if there was some other information you could give us, maybe then we would recall. That is not the line, Peppino. Remember, we do not remember him. We are sure of that fact, huh? Yes, there was a man with a red hairpiece, but his mustache did not match the color. Then I do not think I could have forgotten him. Kazuma said these two had only been shown that photograph, and they'd been told something, told nothing else at all. But what if I fed them just one other detail about the victim, for example? I can certainly appreciate that you just knowing the man had red hair wouldn't help you remember in this situation. What if I told you that the man was always munching on a packet of fish and chips? Do you remember a man who was eating incessantly? Not really, I was looking only at the heads of the applicants. I wouldn't have noticed the fish and chips any more than the caviar and smoked salmon. Or spaghetti, me. I love the spaghetti. Really? I had no idea. Tell them again what you said before, Peppino. See, Captain, see. I say it and I'll say it again. And Lord, the victim has had nothing to do with us. Okay, we're gonna have to go back to that one and press the other three. We might lose health though because we give him too much. But only have our word. You only have your word for that. See, but what else can we do, eh? True. For what are not having much fun these days. First we are arrested, then we are shown the horrible picture of a dead man. And now you question every single thing we say. We are the victims here. Hey, Capo? No, you were caught carrying out a plot to swindle hundreds of innocent people. Humph, you had to bring that up, eh? It's not fair. Hey, Capo? Okay.
Hold it!
What do you mean by that? Alvaro, you promised not to say, O Capo. After we had taken all the money that day, we should have left the country. That was my plan. I left the purchasing of the tickets for the ferry to Dunkirk to my companion here. But he bought them for the wrong day. Oops. See, but it was an easy mistake to make, the 31st. I have no sympathy for you. You were an old day late for the boat because of your stupidity. We were an old day, oh. It's only because of this so-called great red-headed detective caught us. Capo, you know what I think? This is the work of God. It's a holy punishment, eh? Peppino, for the last time, this is not only punishment, This is only your fault. Aye. Don't blame God for your unholy mistakes. You are making me sick with anger. Maybe I make a mistake. But when it's time to eat the pasta, no one is a faster. And I've seen the evidence. They haven't told us much we already know. Well, what do you say? What is it? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, if any of is in the inspector's diary, it seems likely that he must have gone to Lime Street that day. And yet these two both claim they didn't see him. I have to say, they don't appear to be telling lies. Well, they are experts in deception, don't forget. Sounding plausible is their specialty. They may be lying simply to avoid being implicated in this case as well. Surely if they were truly experts in deception, they wouldn't have been caught. Well, yes, you do have a point there. It seems to me like we need more information. Definitely.
Hold it!
I'd certainly appreciate that just knowing the man had red hair wouldn't help you remember in this situation. What if I told you that the man in the red hair piece was actually a detective? The man is a photograph, a detective? Yes. It would appear he found your notice in the paper suspicious and decided to investigate incognito. Sorry, but this changes nothing.
Excuse me.
Something to add, Mr. De Rossi? Jesse, I'm always adding something. Parmesan, olive oil, pepper. What I mean is, did you not agree with your friend's last remark by any chance? Yeah, what did he just say? About the detective? Yes, that. Keep your mouth shut, Peppino. You have said enough already. But why, Capo? What is the problem? There was a man who said, I am an inspector from Scotland Yard. What? Good lord. Or, explain this volte-face and your testimony, witness. It's simple. A man who was at the park said there was no such man. Madai, what are you saying, Capo? Have you forgotten, eh? I've forgotten nothing. Nobody likes this king to the park. Basta, Capo, basta. You beat me to it at many things, but not two. The memory and the meals. Like I said, when it's time to eat the pasta, no one is a faster. But you are inferior to me in every other way. So shut up.
Objection!
Drop card. The damage is done. Indeed it is, sir. But there was a man who came to the park and he said he was an inspector from Scotland Yard. However, he looked nothing like the man in the photograph. It was someone else. How can you be sure? Because, to start with, his face was completely different. See, it's true. The man who came was a younger. His face was clean-shaven, his eyes were sadder, and his chin was thinner. No resemblance whatsoever, then. Anyway, I was not going to be fooled. It took the obvious precaution and said to him, if you are really a detective, show us the proof. CC, the capo here, he doesn't take a no-nonsense, eh? But it was well prepared. He said he had identification. Identification? You mean official police inspector's identification? That is more unconvincing. That is most unconvincing. Sorry, my lord. Counsel is no incognito inspector would offer his identification for inspection. It's quite out of the question. Definitely. Why would he expose his true identity? Clearly, the papers were fake. Certo, Capto, you are a genius. As we say in the Italia, it makes a thief to recognize another. Takes a thief to recognize another, eh? And what happened after he announced that he was a detective? It became very annoying. He said, "You are under investigation." So I took his papers from him and chased him out of the park. It was fantastico. And look, here is the identification. So you stole it from the man. He had it coming. He made us very scared. And he was not who he said he was. Indeed, the person described does not appear to have behaved in it as a true inspector would. However, I believe it would be prudent for these identification papers to be entered into evidence. Oof. But I like him. Now, let us return to the witness's testimony. So saying these guys are Italian instead of French. That makes me even more like I know nothing. Okay. All that, some of that romance stuff just all blends together. Let's open it. Well, I suppose we should see what this inspector's identification looks like inside. Yes, it definitely looks fake, doesn't it? Out of interest, what name is given? Probably just something plucked out of the air. It's Tobias Gregson. Wait, what? This Scotland Yard insignia looks genuine to me. But how? And the department identification number details are all correct as well. Since when have we known those? Do you mean to say... I know it seems incredible, but yes. I think this is a genuine identification book issued by Scotland Yard. But that's unbelievable. This is the real thing after all? Huh. That's weird. Now let's try the other options. Or the last option. That's kind of interesting and weird. I can certainly appreciate just knowing the man had red hair wouldn't help you remember in this situation. What if I told you that the man's name was Gregson? This man is a photograph is a Monsieur Gregson? Yes. Names, they are boring. I did not listen to any of them. Oh. It was not a real interview, huh? It was just for a show. Why would I remember the names? That's right, this changes nothing. The man in the photograph was not there, and as we've already said. I see. It seems there's little to be gained from pursuing this point further. Tells him again what you said before, Peppino. Okay. So basically, Herlock Sholmes had Gregson's card. But then he said that basically when he got there, he was told, "Oh, Herlock Sholmes, it appears you're investigating. Are you investigating a case?" He's like, "Shh, don't give me away." That's what he said. He didn't say, "Hey, I'm an inspector from Scotland Yard and here's my warrant card. It says I'm Tobias Gregson." Maybe it was, what's his face? I can't get to the people from the screen. Vigil. Yeah. But, whatever. Because he fits the description, right? Thinner chin, clean shaven, and sadder eyes. I gotta present this on one of these. I don't know which one to present it on. Okay, well, the music stopped. I wonder if I could ask you to examine this identification book very closely. Miss Lestrade? Why, Miss Lestrade? What is your intention here, Counsel? Is if this really is fake, or is it genuine? That's the question. Which we can't answer ourselves. Don't be ridiculous. No Scotland Yard detective would allow his or her identification to be stolen. That is the boss's, no question about it. It can't be. As I suspected, the undercover detective who attended the Red-Headed League's enrollment on the day in question was the real Inspector Gregson, carrying out an incognito investigation. Zul. Order! But if the boss had an identification stolen, he would have reported it straight away. I mean, it was always on at me about it. If you lose some report it at once, it'd say. Could it be, then, that the inspector was physically unable to report it? Physically? What are you saying? Unable to? You're not suggesting... Yes, it's quite possible that he was killed before he had the chance to report his identification stolen. No. Order! The defense posits that the victim was killed the day before his body was discovered at a different location. Do you two have anything to say about that? I know nothing. I don't know nothing. Pull yourself together, Peppino. Mondua, you can believe a little more like a master criminal than that, none? Now I wish I had returned to Italia. Stop crying, Peppino, please. Otherwise, Lemmy, stop your whine and start talking. Well, I believe the court will need to hear your story in considerably greater detail. I know nothing, I done nothing. But you will tell everything, or face the worst possible outcome. You will dry your eyes and testify again about the identification papers and the precise circumstances under which you came by them. For crying out loud. The truth is, we took him prisoner and kept him for the night at our secret hideout. Even though I didn't think he was a real detective, I was too scared to let him go that day, just in case. We took the man's identification from him and shut him in a room next to ours. There might have been a little tussle, but we did him no harm, and the next morning we let him go. We spent a night in a nice room. It was nothing like prison, really. This is outrageous. You imprisoned the man? It's called kidnapping, but whatever. But no, it was not like a prison. He was very comfortable and calm and happy. A capo? It was never part of my plan. I swear it. Oofa, so you think it was all my fault, eh? Just because I got the date of the ferry wrong. My one little a day. I do not think it was your fault, Peppino, I know it. No, por favor, capo, is not fair. You shall have plenty of time for squabbling back at the prison, gentlemen. If I don't believe this, how could I have been a real could he have been a real detective? Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination. So on the day before the incident, Gregson spent the night confined in this pair's hideout.
Hold it!
Do you realize what you're saying? You have to believe me, I never intended for that to happen, and I'm sure the detective did not intend it either. Do you think? But there was nothing else I could do. See, nothing else. This was the first crime for the capo. He was at the end of his wits. As I told you before, Peppino, that is not the way to describe a criminal mastermind. What about this hideout of yours? An old empty house behind the park on Lime Street. He rented the place for 2 days. It was an inspired idea by the capo here. An impulsive idea, I would say. No, not impulsive, inspired. Capo? What am I supposed to say to that, Peppino? And it was in the house described that you can find Inspector Gregson, was it? Oui. But you have to remember, I was under the impression that he was a pretender, not a real inspector. That doesn't quite add up, though. If you didn't think man was a real inspector, there would have been no reason to take him prisoner, would there? Well, it's just in case. None, you're right, but we couldn't be completely certain.
Hold it!
Too scared? Why? Because why'd I come to the park? We didn't know. There was a chance that it had seen through my plan. And if that was the case, he would go straight to the police station to blow the whistle on us. Even if he was just a foreign feigning to be inspector, he was up to no good, without a doubt, eh? I think most people would agree that it's you two who were up to no good. Well, see, you may be right. Capo? The point is, we were not able to escape from England immediately. That is why we had no choice but to take the man prisoner. What I don't understand is why the inspector felt the need to show you his identification in the first place. So I asked myself the same question. We were writing down the names and addresses of all the people who we took 5 shillings from that day. I've forgotten what name he said, but the address, it startled me. CC address, Scotland Yard, Homicide Division, he said. What? He probably didn't like your face, Peppino. Anyway, I was not rude, I just politely asked him why he said that. And that's when he started to say he was an inspector. Not long afterwards, he took out his identification. What was Inspector Gregson playing at? Tell the court what happened next. You took him back to your hideout, you say? See, we did a... We took the man's identification from him and shut him in the room next to ours.
Hold it!
That being this identification book here, correct? See, that is the one. What made you believe that it was a forgery? I never seen a real one, of course. But it was so suspicious, this a man. Allura, I was thinking it must be falso. Eh, Capo? It was just as Peppino has said. We were convinced it was not genuine. And so together the hilarious brothers we took man captive. All we did was shove him inside a locked room. Then we made preparations to transport all the money. In for a penny, in for a pound.
Hold it!
What do you mean by a little tussle, exactly? It was nothing, just a minor incident. The falso inspector, he was a real piece of work, Capo. What happened? It was a disaster. We give him a nice room, and what in the middle of the night, he tries to escape through the ventilator. Can you blame him? We chased him, bin sur, and we caught him again. Can you blame us? Wait, you didn't shoot the man in your haste, did you? Who do you think we are? Of course not. I simply caught hold of him again and took him back to the room.
Excuse me.
Mr. De Rossi, is something wrong? Me? Something Mr. De Rousseau just said seemed to make you, well, it seems to make you act even more strangely than usual. What was that all about? Cavolo, at times like that you don't want to have to capo after you, believe me. And I speak it from a personal experience. Personal experience? That is enough, Peppino, so there's no need to say more. The truth is, the night before we put the Red-Headed League plan into action, I was scared. It was not fair to the capo, but I tried to run away. It's a shame you didn't manage it. But the capo here, he came after me like the troop turban, and he dragged me back to the house, kicking and screaming. I still have the bruises to prove it, eh, capo? Bruises, you say? You wanna see, You wanna see my fantastico bruises, which happen to be a ligature? That's enough now, Peppino. No one wants to look at any part of you. What to do, I'll show you, I don't. I'll show you, or I don't. You do now. Oh, Laura. Everybody wants to see the night I do it. Echo, you see, is very visible, eh? That red ring around your neck. You got that when you were dragged back to the house. See, the capo, sometimes he is very rough. And I said that's enough. Peppino's neck has nothing to do with what we are talking about here. You have my word. Yes. What is your opinion, Counsel? About this red ring around Mr. De Rossi's neck. I wonder, does it matter? Yes, it's important. Everything's important. I don't know why they ever give you that option. Mr. De Rossi, I'm going to have to ask you to amend your testimony with details about the mark on your neck. Eh, Capo, you see, everyone is interested in what I say, Very well, you will amend your testimony as requested, Mr. De Rossi. CC, if you really want to know.
Hold it!
Are you saying that red mark was caused by CC, a big collar made from the leather? A leather collar. Is this true, Mr. De Rousseau? What? We had St. Bernard at home when I was younger. It was a souvenir from that time, with a very strong chain. A strong chain. And you put that around your friend's neck. I'm sorry, it was so angry that it was leaving me alone. You did not have to tie the chain to the leg of the bed, though I would have not tried to run again. You didn't do that to Inspector Gregson as well, did you? Treated the people equally. Is the capital there's motto, eh? It's starting to sound a lot more like a prison all of a sudden. The capo is a tough, but the capo is a rough. I shouldn't have done it. So, the following morning when you released the inspector, he had the red ring around his neck, just like me. Fino still was play. Leave it now. Now you know, the capo here, you don't want to tango with him, eh? But for the inspector, it's not so bad.
Hold it!
You took away the man's freedom, however uncomfortable you make it sound, you're still holding him prisoner. If you say that, then I say this. There is something that takes away our freedom too. The lack of money. So we are the prisoners as well, all of us. Huh? No money, no freedom. This is the truth. It makes me mad and it makes me sad. But what can we do? Well... If you feel so disenfranchised, take money to court. It'll cost you, of course. There you have it. You see, that is why we need the Red-Headed League. To fight for the justice. Perhaps he has a point. No, Mr. Naruhodo. All we did was give the man a comfortable place to sleep for the night. And you say it was a prison, perhaps he has a point again. Not again, Mr. Naruhodo. You should have heard him snoring. And if anyone was disturbed, it was us. Not much to go on, really. That testimony does make me wonder, you know. About this pocket watch belonging to the inspector, I mean. Ah, yes, the one he treasured so much, apparently. If he was confined but not restrained, as the victim was implying, he would still have been able to wind his watch. That's very true, yes. So did Inspector Gregson actually die while he was being held captive by these redheads? In which case, is it possible that these two young men are responsible for Inspector Gregson's? To be honest, I find that hard to believe. Perhaps we should try to find out exactly what happened. Very wise, Mr. Naruhodo, yes. Okay, is there anything, like, we can present on this? I can't tell if that red stuff is part of the clothing, though, or the actual collar. Or like just a shadow, like shading, like a shadow. I mean, that's the best thing to present, but it's kind of weak. You would think that you would present on the collar, because that's the thing that you had to work to get added to the testimony. That's the only thing that I can see that has any vague relation to the collar. Would be this picture. Even though it doesn't have very much of a relation to the collar.
Objection!
Oh, the music stopped. So the day before his body was discovered, Inspector Gregson was taken prisoner while working incognito. No, none, it was not like that. It was hardly a prison. It was an invitation to stay. It was humbly. However, you describe it, there is one glaring inconsistency that remains. What inconsistency is this, Counsel? I would ask the court to look closely at this photograph of the victim, Inspector Gregson. You will see that there is no red ring visible around his neck. Oh, okay. But that makes no sense. It was me who took the collar off the man in the morning. And I saw the red bruises on his neck just like I have. Given that the mark is still clearly visible on this witness's neck, we expect to see bruising on the victim, who was put in the collar more recently than Mr. De Rossi. Indeed. That is most peculiar. But what we tell you, we say this from a beginning, many times. Well, Peppino was right. The man in the photograph is somewhat different from the man we held captives that night. Order! It would appear then that on the day before the incident, the man who visited the park on Lime Street posing as an incognito inspector was not Inspector Gregson at all. If that's true, however, how do you explain the inspector's identification? This is a genuine identification book issued by Scotland Yard. It's inconceivable that someone could have stolen such an important item from the inspector. The prosecution made that assertion itself. And we also know that the inspector had made a note about the Red-Headed League in his diary for that day, which surely means we can't divorce the two events completely. The inconsistency noted by the defense is most troubling. If it were the real Inspector Gregson whom these two red-headed gentlemen encountered, the fact that no bruising can be seen around his neck defies explanation. But equally, if they actually encountered an inspector, how did that person come to be in possession of the real inspector's identification? Does the defense have some plausible explanation, counsel? The whole thing defies explanation. It is for precisely these occasions that we keep meticulous notes in the court record, Mr. Naruhodo, because those are the facts, and the facts cannot lie. No, the facts can't lie. Even when they point to something so incredible, it's almost unbelievable. Well, my lord, the true identity of the person who turned up in the park for the Red-Headed League's enrollment is revealed by information in the court record, I believe. Good gracious. Very tantalizing, Mr. Naruhodo. So why don't you help us all see whatever the truth it is that you've apparently seen? Who exactly was the inspector that appeared before Mr. Rousseau? Okay, at the Red-Headed League. Don't think anything in there. Vigil. Sad eyes, clean shaven, narrow chin. Dismissal of Vigil. The gun. Though it seems incredible, I admit, the undeniable facts point to the only one thing. Since no bruising can be seen on the victim's neck, the person who these two red-headed men took prisoner that day cannot have been Inspector Gregson. In other words, your whole argument up till now has been a waste of time.
Objection.
On the contrary, I haven't finished. What? There's no bruising on the victim's neck, so the question immediately posed next is, who has bruising on his neck? Who exactly was this man in the park on Lime Street found to be carrying Inspector Gregson's identification? C. That is right. So tell the same story every time. We tell the same story every time. Whoever this man was, the capo dragged him from a pillar to a post with a dog collar. Duo Peppino, I was not so harsh as you say, eh? So who was that, a falso inspector, eh? Who was he? Clearly, the defense has an idea about that. It's probably just as simple as he disappeared for a day. The true identity of the man who's these two imprisoned that night. As I must ask the counsel for the defense to elaborate post-haste. Who did the witness encounter in the park, posing as Inspector Gregson?
Take that!
It's surely no secret. This is the identity of the imposter. Oh, really? On what grounds? Well, I said it was no secret, but that part is... What? How is it not him? Oh. That's so random, though. No, that's so random.
Take that!
Why? Goodness me, isn't that... One of the witnesses who was in the stand in this very courtroom earlier today. A nameless man whose only occupation appears to be peddling hearsay to passersby.
Objection.
What on earth would a street seller be doing with a police inspector's identification papers? Witness, is this the man or not? What happened to his lip? Huh? So this a man is not the red-headed league, eh? He's looking for the twisted lip league, no? Perhaps not, rather than making such a rash claim next time, you should bite your lip instead. It seems improbable, yes, but one undeniable fact remains. During his testimony earlier, I noted something around the man's neck. A red ring of bruising. Eh? What? The defense demands that Mr. Gossip be brought back to the stand. Order! Bailiff, bring the aforementioned witness back into the courtroom. Immediately. Well, I never. An undeniable ring of bruising indeed. And identical to that of the witness beside him, except the neck is, like, much thinner, which makes the collar fit much differently, but whatever. Now, what's going on here, eh? I've always had this, me. It's a birthmark, isn't it? A birthmark, you say? I assume the reason you've been recalled to the stand has been explained to you? Yeah, it's about an inspector again. I'm telling you, you've got it all wrong, as usual. You're denying all knowledge of it? Well, of course I am. Oh, are you trying to kill me with all your nonsense, eh? Well, at least you'll have more stories to peddle back on Fresno Street, won't you? Now, we're going to need you to testify again. And you, Mr. De Rousseau and Mr. De Rossi, I'm sure you'll cooperate, won't you? Do you have any choice? We are in big trouble at Capo. That's quite enough dilatory chatter. Proceed with the testimony. The man who claimed to be inspectors that day was definitely not this man. He's right, see it? You think he would forget these grand lips, eh? I never leave Fresno Street, alright? I have no interest in any red-headed league. I'm all alone in the world, me. I've got no kinfolk or nothing. Why would I be involved in something like that? Just look at me. Does it look like I can carry off a disguise with a face like this? It would certainly appear that we have the wrong man. What I've been telling you, huh? There was no need for the pointless testimony. That's right, I'm just a simple peddler, remember? Fresno Street's all I know. How would I have come by a police inspector's identification book, eh? Well, yes, that's hard to explain, but... A brief cross-examination, I'll think, counsel. Very brief. Isn't there anyone in this courtroom who thinks I might be on to something? I stand steadfastly on your side, as always, Mr. Naruhodo.
Hold it!
So you say, but how can you be quite so certain? There is no need to hurt your hands on the desk, monsieur. Surely the reason is obvious, none? Because I've never before seen lips like this. Nevertheless, there's a clear red mark around Mr. Gossip's neck. And it looks very much like that left behind on the neck of your colleague by your prize collar. Mon Dieu, with your words, it is like you are trying to rig my neck. It does look very much like my neck, though. Eh? No, this is a birthmark, lad. The biggest lips in London and a neck to die for. Eh, they broke the mold when they made me. For it's the first time in my life I feel lucky to have been born with red hair. And I thought being Japanese made you stand out in London. So you maintain that you've never seen this man before? Oh, I swear to it by the flames of my hair. So fierce pride has outgrown the frustration with your hair now, has it?
Hold it!
Oh yes, I don't imagine I'll forget those lips in a hurry either. That is what I am saying. For some reason it makes me want to eat. How did Fabian call it? An eclair? You know, I've never seen the hair as black as yours before either. Likewise, I'd never seen red hair like yours until I came to Britain. See, maybe it's a national trait, Maybe all the people from this man's country have the grand lips. No, lad, I was born right there here on Fresno Street, and I've never left. But that is the problem, see? So you definitely didn't go to the park on Lime Street that day, Mr. Gossip. How many times do you want me to say it, eh?
Hold it!
So you heard of the Red-Headed League, had you? You don't get a name like Gossip for nothing, eh? It's my business to know what's going on in town. I sold that tasty tidbit to a fair few redheads that came past me. Just between us, I even got Sandwich to cough up for it. Well, he does have a very red nose if that counts. Who knows? But as you can see, my own hair has got not a hint of red in it. In any case, Fresno Street's my patch. You won't catch me sliding off to some other part of town.
So,
No, sir, not likely.
Excuse me.
Mr. de Rousseau. Can I help you? If Mr. Gossip's work just now leads you to remember something relevant, perhaps. It was the other day when I was looking for a place near the park, a small house or something. To be headquarters of the Red-Headed League, yes? I visited an housing agent on Lime Street, and there I saw him. This man was paying money to the agent. What? Mr. Gossip? With a housing agent? Wait, they had some kind of contract in his end. They were clearly discussing terms. But no, you're mistaken, chum. I never left Fresno Street. Me, like I said before. If you've mistaken me for someone else, someone with the same face, oh, no one has the same face. No, the capo was right, I remember it too. He was paying the man with the banknotes. With notes. Like I said, that wasn't me. I was curious why this man with the dirty clothes had so much money. So I looked at the name on the papers. And what the name was written. Mr. Gossip? No, this man, he lies. I tell you what his name... that he has no name. But in fact his name is Hugh Boone, eh? It's better than Mr. Gossip, I think, see? Well, that's lame. I'm a peddler of tidbits of information, like I said, on Fresno Street, and that's that. I don't much like folk talking about my personal life. Indeed. And it is not the intention of the court to invade the privacy of witnesses. Very well, I shall respect your wishes, sir. The aforementioned name shall be redacted from all court records of this trial, assuming no objections.
Objection.
I'm sorry, my lord, but the defense does object. Because the name just mentioned has a very deep significance to this case. Good gracious. Do you similarly object, Professor Asogi? Or... Wait, I read that wrong. Prosecutor, not professor. What in the world? As it happens, my lord, that particular name has already been mentioned during today's proceedings. Well, I never. In what capacity? Hugh Boone. The name of the leaseholder of the room. Let me put this very simply. The victim's body was discovered in your rented room. I suggest, sir, that you start talking. Well, alright. I suppose that might be the case, eh? So, your real name is Hugh Boone? Well, just between us, I don't like to blow me own trumpet, but there's no finer peddler of tidbits in town. So I happen to be able to afford a grubby little room in a falling down backstreet townhouse. You do. And once every 6 months I go in and pay the rent to the agent on Lime Street. Hey, I remember now. There were 2 vulgar redheads in there last time. If either of us is a vulgar, it's not me. Sink again, Peppino. Why didn't you bring this up before? Like I told you already. I don't like talking about my personal life. I'm a tidbit peddler as far as everyone else is concerned. No fuss. You will update your testimony to include this most surprising revelation, Mr. Boone. If I must. So the leaseholder Scotland Yard has been looking for since the body was discovered. Has been here under our noses all along. I read the room where the fellow was found is true, for what difference it makes.
Hold it!
So, you live in that room presumably, do you? No, I don't live there. What do you think? There's no bed, is there? Just a desk. Then why would you want to rent it? Well, I don't think I should have to say, really. Then how about the notice board in there? Which was covered with from top to bottom in confidential documents only the police should have had access to. No, that board's not mine. The inspector must have brought it along. It's only the other bits and bobs that belong to me. The desk and the chair and that. People don't generally carry enormous notice boards around with them. The real question is, why was Inspector Gregson killed there in your room? Well, obviously, I have not the faintest idea. I mean, it's causing me no end of bother, to be honest. It seems to me that Mr. Boone would rather as little known about his room as possible for some reason. Yes, it does come across that way, and more importantly, knowing that the scene of the crime is actually his room completely changes things. And particularly, there's one part of his testimony that really bothering me now. That's how I'm finally going to undo this man.
Hold it!
You mean you have no family? No, none at all. So I spend my days on Fresno Street peddling tidbits to passersby. Hoping just between us, this is, that eventually someone else with lips like mine will come along. I don't think so. You may be right. Anyway, that mark on your neck is just too much of a coincidence for us to ignore. Well, that's a fella to do then, eh? If you don't believe me, we're in an impasse. And there's nothing I can do but flick my lip. Looks like I'm going to get anywhere here. I'm not going to get anywhere here unless I can produce some proof. You're basically saying I got dressed up and posed as some fancy inspector, aren't you? Well, it's beyond me how you could think I could do that.
Hold it!
Maybe you could. Say with a mustache, or a beard, or cover up that lip. Perhaps. But I was going to stick some fake facial hair on to cover up this fine specimen. I'd end up looking like his lordship over there, wouldn't I? Pardon? I assure you that my lips are entirely unremarkable. And I would ask you not to cast your scrutinizing looks in my direction, Counsel. Sorry, my lord. My imagination got the better of me there. Well, Inspector Gregson did wear a mustache, of course. You're right, he did. So, perhaps he was hiding something himself. We could barely have hidden a crumb in a mustache of that size. And anyway, the detective we spoke with had no facial hair at all. See, the capo was right. He was clean-shaven. It certainly seems beyond the realm of possibility that this witness could have disguised himself as the victim. It does, and it is. That's the extent of their testimony, is it? What's your feeling, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, what Mr. Boone says is undeniable. It would be all but impossible to hide those lips with any form of disguise. Perhaps yes, but nevertheless the mark around his neck is equally undeniable, and it's identical to the one that Mr. de Rossi suffered. Yes, that's right. It's true, but why does this whole disguise idea just keep playing in my mind? The lips are fake. So this is the new one. It's probably wrong, but I guess I want to try this. Why was this in your room then?
Objection!
Oh, that would have been a tricky one, but I caught it. She had no kinfolk, as you put it. Then explain why it was that among the sparse furnishings we found this photograph in the room. Ah. I presume as you've been renting the room, that this photograph belongs to you, does it not? Oh, well... I'm finally coming around. It's finally gonna actually be Mr. Vigil. Gonna be right in the end. Mr. Boone, drop the pretense and tell the court exactly what you really are. I don't know what you mean. I'm a peddler. I keep telling you so. You really don't need to bother with me. Please, just leave me alone. As the man says, leave it alone. Whatever the truth is about this man's life, it has no bearing on this case. Because it simply is not possible to be impersonated, that he impersonated Inspector Gregson. How could you be so sure? Just look at the man. No amount of disguise could ever hide those unmissable features. Those unmissable features are a disguise. But what if we were looking at it the other way around? Exactly. What do you mean? Yes, counsel, what do you mean? Well, there's no denying that Mr. Boone's lip is very prominent indeed. But consider the possibility that his prominent lip is itself part of an elaborate disguise. Then hiding that prominent feature, in other words, revealing his true face, would make an utterly impenetrable disguise. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Hugh Boone? Good, witness. Are you still hiding the truth from this court? If that's a disguise, then underneath it, his true identity must be... Yes, that's right. There's really only one person he could really be. My lord, the defense believes it can reveal Mr. Boone's true identity to the court. No, please, no. Very well then, Counsel. Who is a Tridentious peddler who goes simply by the name of Gossip on the street? Finally, we're finally gonna do it. Finally.
Take that!
Your real name is actually Mr. Vigil, isn't it? Mr. Daily Vigil? Finally! I don't recall that name, Counsel. Who is Mr. Vigil? It's a name I encountered yesterday, my lord. It has to do with a certain client of Mr. Herlock Sholmes. A young gentlewoman came to the detective asking him to locate her missing husband. The woman in this photograph, in fact. This is Mrs. Vigil. What? From what I understand, you haven't returned home since the night before the inspector was found dead. But of course, on that night, you were being held captive by the two Red-Headed League men. And last night, you were put up by the prosecution service in preparation for testifying in this trial. Because we've led to believe that you, Miss Venus, and Mr. Sandwich were all homeless. Being important witnesses in this case, we needed to know where we could find you, of course. And that explains why you've only been unable to return home, but also unable to contact your wife, who's been beside herself with worry waiting for you at the Vigil residence. Now, just you hold on a minute. What I'm talking about, really? It's a simple enough matter to confirm my suspicions. All we have to do is pull off that disguise. No, please. Just have Gina do it. Bailiff, bring soap, a sponge, and a washbowl at once. Mr. de Rousseau and Mr. de Rossi, you will restrain the witness. Oi, my lord. No, stop. Don't. Well, we are now seeing your true features, I presume. Clothes just changed. Lift your head, sir, so the court can see your face. It would appear that the defense counsel's assertion was entirely correct. This has been a very elaborate deception. So, witness, tell the court. Have you seen this man before? I don't believe it, but... See, there is no question. This is the inspector we saw in the park. Extraordinary. On the day of the Red-Headed League enrollment, the man claiming to be Inspector Gregson appeared before Mr. de Rousseau and Mr. de Rossi in the park. Was you disguised as the inspector, or rather, was you posing as the inspector in no disguise at all? Mr. Vigil was formerly employed as a chief warder at Barclay Prison. The client with the chief warder. Then your career had promise. Why would you quite possibly having the future governor? Why you would quite possibly have become the future governor of the prison? What on earth have you been doing peddling little tattle on Fresno Street? Well, it's been 10 years since Mr. Vigil worked at the prison. 10 years? I'm really dreadfully sorry about all of this. Yes, it's true. I'm Daily Vigil. And you were the chief warder at Barclay Prison 10 years ago. So where did Mr. Hugh Boone come from? Boone is the other me. It's my name. It's a name I invented. Well, evidently there is a great deal under the surface here. I'll explain everything. I'll tell you just how wretched my life has become. As you say, it was 10 years ago now that my employment at as Barclay's chief warder came to an end. Having left the prison service, I searched for some new occupation by which to earn a wage. The times were hard in London, and I found no suitable engagements at all. In desperation one day, I turned my hand at selling wares on Fresno Street. But your wife appears to know nothing of this. She still maintains that you are the chief warder at Barclay Prison. I was utterly determined that my wife should not know of my failings, which is why I never told her. I opened an account at the bank under the name of Hugh Boone, and I rented the cheapest room I could find on Fresno Street. The scene of the very crime we were investigating. Yes, that's right. A place from which I could emerge every morning at 8 as a squalid peddler, and transform myself back every evening at 5 into a well-dressed man from town before returning home. That quickly became my daily routine. I was puzzled by the lack of furniture in the room, but that explains it. But why on earth didn't you just tell us this in the first place? I have a wife, sir, and 2 sons, and without wishing to sound self-conceited, they regard me with some pride. I couldn't bring myself to disappoint them. So instead, you just decided to conceal your occupation from them. Yes. I have made such a terrible mess of everything. Still, one thing doesn't add up. No matter how many tidbits of information you could sell to passing gentlemen, even at 6 pence apiece, you couldn't hope to match the salary you must have commanded as chief warder at the prison. Very true. To have kept your family in comfort despite 10 years of somewhat misbegotten employment. That was all thanks to Inspector Gregson. What? Inspector Gregson, what on earth? It was some years ago I invented Boone and begun my other life as a street seller. The inspector, that is, recognized me one day. Do you mean to say the victim was an acquaintance of yours? I knew him from my time working at the prison. When he saw what I had become, he was deeply troubled for me and my family. And from that day forward, he visited me on Fresno Street with increasing regularity. Then one day, he asked me if I would carry out a secret assignment for him. A secret... What was it? It was to impersonate the inspector. What, impersonate him? We always met in that little room so the inspector could brief me. Visit Orcs tomorrow and take a statement from the proprietress. It was always something along those lines. Surveillance work, interviewing people. On those occasions, he would lend me his identification so people would believe who I was. My instructions were to make an impression, to let people know that Inspector Gregson had been at work. And for those services, he compensated me financially. The Scotland Yard inspector willingly relinquished his identification into your care with intent to deceive. That, I am sure I need not point out, is a very serious criminal offense. Well, he's dead, so it doesn't matter. But why? What was the point of you impersonating him? I truthfully do not know. All I can say is that the inspector warned me on numerous occasions. Now remember, Vigil, I need your solemn word. You don't blab about this to anyone, alright? Ever. Even if I end up a croaker. In time, he started to bring papers with him to the room as well. Became something of a second office for him. So in fact, the person who declared himself to be Inspector Gregson at the park on Lime Street was really... Yes, it was me, acting on the inspector's orders. As usual, I removed my boom disguise, and then went as instructed to the park, armed with the inspector's identification book. It never occurred to me that the bruise on my neck might give me away. Well, it would seem this confession completely destroys the defense's case. Explain yourself, Prosecutor Asogi. My learned friend's assertion was as follows. The victim was killed in another location on the day before his corpse was discovered, at the hands of those two Redhead League men when they imprisoned the inspector. But no, that can't be. After all, it wasn't the inspector who went to the park that day, it was me. Oh goodness. Finally, we have clarity. We had nothing to do with the murder of the inspector. And merci, Monsieur de la Défense, is for proving it. What? Order. Indeed, it would appear that we have reached a de facto conclusion of sorts. These witnesses had no involvement in the murder of the victim, as proven somewhat ironically by the defense. I hereby call an end to the cross-examination.
Hold it!
Pardon me, my lord. But with your permission, I would like to pose one further question to the witness. Kazuma. What question, counsel? It concerns the events of 10 years ago. I believe you would have been present at a very significant execution that was carried out at the time. 10 years ago? The execution of the professor, Genshin Asogi. I want to know exactly what your involvement was. Oh. Answer me, man. One moment, counsel. Is this related to the current case? I don't care. Naturally. It is the prosecution's belief that this case and the events of 10 years ago are inextricably linked. Here we go. Does the defense concur, counsel? Kazuma, you're not yourself. You're not as calm and collected as usual. Poor Kazuma-sama, no wonder he's acting this way. Mr. Vigil's memories of what happened 10 years ago would tell the tale of Genshin Asogi's last moments. His own father. I know. I do understand that, but even so... Kazuma, Prosecutor Asogi, do you genuinely believe that this question requires an answer in order to learn the truth behind Inspector Gregson's death? I need you to trust me, please. Very well, then the defense has no objection. I see. In that case, you'll answer the question, witness. Truth is, I remember very little of that time. You've forgotten? Sorry to say, yes. As I said, I resigned from my role at the prison 10 years ago. But for some peculiar reason, my memory of the events leading up to that moment is extremely hazy. Does that not strike you as strange, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry? Well, 10 years is a long time, but to have forgotten the reason why you left such an important job. Yes, you're right. And not only that, Mr. Vigil's claim contradicts what we already know. The human spirit is a fragile thing. It's broken all too easily, which is why we have a tendency to wrap it up for protection. Sorry, the human spirit. I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean. When we experience pain and suffering that we feel unable to bear, we block it out, obliterate it from our memories, seal it away. But it never truly leaves us. If the seal is broken, the memories resurface. And when they do, that fragile spirit may finally be crushed. But I really don't want to be crushed, Kusuma-sama. But if it must be crushed, then so be it! Because the truth will not stay buried. It's coming out, one way or another. It's gonna juice him. Now I understand. It's clear what his intentions are. He means to expose the truth at any cost. Perhaps if I pointed out the contradiction in what Mr. Vigil claimed earlier, it might cause some crucial memories to return to him. Should I? Should I present the evidence or not? Do it! I have no idea how this is going to go, but this is a court of law, and I have a duty to pursue the truth. Mr. Vigil, I'd like you to look at this. Evidence that clearly contradicts your version of events.
Take that!
Just a few moments ago, you made the following statement. I resigned from my role at the prison 10 years ago. Oh, well, yes. In other words, you claim to have left the post of chief warder of your own volition. Well, yes, of course. Why? Tell me. Do you remember seeing this document before? No, I don't. This is a dismissal notice, ordering the immediate termination of a prison staff member's employment. Dismissal notice? And the name on the notice is yours, Mr. Vigil. What? It's mine? So you didn't resign from the prison service at all. For some reason, you were dismissed as chief warder from Barclay. No, there's been some mistake. I'm sure I tendered my resignation. This dismissal notice is nonsense. Isn't it? Sorry, I'm just listening to the music a bit. If you were forcibly dismissed, there must have been good reason. Clearly, you did something. Mr. Vigil, it's time to break the seal and have you remember. According to the few remaining records, the final execution that she supervised was 17th of June, 10 years ago. And on that day, something very serious took place at Barclay Prison. 17th of June. Was that the professor's execution? Professor. As you were the chief warder at the time, it stands to reason that you would have been present throughout the proceedings. It does sound familiar. And yet, that execution never took place. The convict ostensibly executed earlier than that day later re-emerged from his grave. The convict came back to life. In the cemetery in the middle of the night, there was a witness. However, the witnesses claims that the moment after he saw the convict clambering out of his grave, a gunshot rang out from over his shoulder, and the bullet pierced the professor's chest, killing him instantly. Those may have been the professor's actual last moments. Yes, yes. Seeing as you were in charge of overseeing executions at the time, you must know the truth about what really happened. It's in your head, somewhere deep down. Well, Chief Warder Daily Vigil, I know there are memories in your head that can explain what happened on 17th of June, 10 years ago. And now it's time for you to drag them up. Mr. Vigil. Yes. The whole prison was complete chaos. The prisoner escaped. He was killed in the cemetery. The shocking news ripped through Barclay like a hurricane. What? What? What, do you mean to say, Mr. Vigil, that your memories of the time have returned? My head. It's like some floodgates have been opened. The images, screams. Oh my goodness. The papers. There are reports, articles, about a man who's seen a ghost. Yes, Enoch Drebber. But surely those reports were exaggerated. There were traces at the scene. Traces of what? In Lowgate Cemetery, at plot number 139, blood, lots of blood. That's where the man was buried, of course. Obviously, something terrible had happened there. The depths of conspiracy and depravity from which this tale is emerging are quite staggering. I've reviewed the police records from that time extensively. A thorough investigation was conducted by Scotland Yard to ascertain how the convict managed to escape in the first place. The conclusion reached by the investigation team was that a member of the prison staff must have been involved. Are you suggesting that a prison warder abetted the man's bid for freedom? Yes, and I was suspected of doing it. Of using the mass murderer's execution as a way to help him escape. You did what? I remember now. The horror of it all is coming back to me. One evening, a few days after the execution, some detectives came to the prison. I was called to the governor's office at the top of the watchtower. I'm sorry, Daly, this is serious business, but can I help you now? As Chief Warder, you are responsible for overseeing the execution of 4, eh? Well, it seems the fellows at Scotland Yard want to have a few words with you about it. You'd better pack your things, laddie. You're to attend in person. As soon as he told me that, my mind just went completely blank. And the next thing I knew, Professor, the most hated killer in our country's history. And I'd let him escape. I'm finished. My life is over. And with that, I'll end this recording session. Yeah, I'll end the recording session before I save, but I'll save after I hit stop.